The win of the weekend, Texas topping Alabama in Tuscaloosa. There is undoubtedly recruiting fallout from the big win. So we bring in Hank South of Horns 24/7 to talk all about it. Hank, you've communicated with high school coaches and recruits in the state following that massive win. What's the level of enthusiasm like in the Lone Star State right now?
It's at an all-time high. You know, I look back to kind of 2005, the Rose Bowl Vince Young season, and it truly feels like it's up there. You know, there hasn't been this kind of win around the Texas program since that season. Obviously, the win over USC in the Rose Bowl for the national championship was the biggest, but you know, you look at that Ohio State win on the road back in '05 that kind of propelled that push to that title. And so, you know, Austin is buzzing for good reason. This was, you know, one of the biggest wins in the regular season in recent memory for any team. And you know, Texas is trying to, you know, keep that momentum going both on the field and certainly on the recruiting trail.
Hank, there are a couple recruits we want to hit on. Let's start with 2025 four-star quarterback and Texas commit KJ Lacey. He was at the game in Tuscaloosa, taking a game day visit to Alabama. The Crimson Tide were one of the schools that were left on the outside looking in when he announced his decision to commit to the Longhorns back in June. What did he say to you heading into that trip, and how should Texas fans feel about keeping him in the fold coming out of this visit?
Yeah, I got to see him on Friday night, actually, before heading up to Tuscaloosa on Saturday morning. And you know, obviously he did KJ Lacey things on Friday night, lit up a really solid St. Paul's team for 3 touchdowns. But talking to him after the game, you know, this visit has been in the works since the day he committed. You know, we interviewed him in Austin the afternoon he committed, and you know, he said he was still going to make that game. So it's not this, you know, surprise visit that just came out of the blue. You know, he is still talking to Alabama. He actually mentioned that he's talking to Colorado a little bit too. But it all comes back to Texas with KJ Lacey. He's really close with AJ Milwee, Steve Sarkisian. He loves the vision they have for him, and obviously, you know, beating Alabama with him in attendance helps as well. But I don't sense any wavering from KJ Lacey at this point. And you know, Alabama's going to stay involved. You have to watch that. They're the in-state school. They have his teammate committed in Ryan Williams, so that's something to watch. But at the same time, you got to watch Texas too, in him trying to flip Ryan Williams to Austin.
You read my mind. That's what I'm going to ask about. 5-star wide receiver Ryan Williams. He's the #1 wideout in the 2025 class. You said it. He's locked in with Alabama, but the Longhorns not giving up there. I mean, how much of an impact do you think that Saturday's result could have on his recruitment?
I think I think it open his eyes a little bit more. You know, obviously we saw the big plays to Worthy, to Mitchell, to Sanders. You know, we saw Texas just slinging it. You have Arch Manning waiting in the wings, Malik Murphy as well. You have 2 very solid quarterbacks, and you have your teammate committed that, you know, he says they're a dynamic duo together, and they want to continue that at the next level. So, you know, if KJ Lacey stays committed to Texas, you got to think that, you know, Texas is going to be involved until the end for Ryan Williams. I don't get the sense he's wavering really from Alabama yet. You know, maybe if there's staff changes on, you know, wide receivers coach changes, or, you know, they drop a few more games, maybe something happens. He did say he wants to visit Austin, maybe for an official visit and an unofficial visit. So, you know, get him on campus, see what can happen. It's all about the relationships with Ryan Williams. He really likes the staff. He communicates with Chris Jackson, the wide receivers coach, at least once a week. So communication lines are open. That's about as much as you can ask for right now, and he's listening. And, you know, I think Auburn and Texas are both going to make Alabama have to work for it to keep him in their class.
That's going to be a fascinating battle in the 2025 class. Let's go back to the 2024 class for a bit and discuss 3-star edge Danny Okoye. He announced the top 3 on Sunday of Texas, Oklahoma, and Tennessee. He also said he will be making his decision on September 20th, so that's about 9 days away. How do you feel about Texas's chances for the Oklahoma native?
Yeah, I liked him a lot better back in the summer after his official visit to Austin. That was the only official visit he took in the summer. He's since taken a bunch of trips elsewhere. I know he's been to Tennessee, he's been to Oklahoma, and his top 3 obviously were those 3 schools. The one kind of, you know, factor I'm watching this weekend is if he does make it to Austin for an unofficial visit. He was talking about visiting for this Wyoming game. There's going to be a lot of buzz at DKR night game coming off the Alabama win. So, if he gets down to the 40 acres for that, does that change anything? If not, I think Oklahoma's probably the trending team for him right now. They got him on campus for the last official visit. Obviously, they're the in-state school, and they've been recruiting at a high level as well. So I would pick Oklahoma. Here we are 9 days out. But, if he does get to Texas this weekend, we've seen momentum shift based off visits like that. Speaking of momentum, just looking big picture here, I'm going to say it, and I don't think it's controversial. This is the biggest win for Sark at Texas over a team they're about to see a whole lot more of when they join the SEC next season. So what kind of momentum, more specifically, could this win give Texas in this 2024 cycle? They got 17 commitments right now, still room to grow. Yeah, I think certainly we could see some immediate payoff. I know the segment prior to this, Steve talked about Ryan Wingo. He was the first one to crystal ball predict him to Texas back in the summer. He's going to be on campus this weekend. Could we see him move his commitment timeline up? He was talking about early signing day. He gets on campus for a night game. After that, maybe he decides to go ahead and join the class. Then we have, Brandon Baker on September 24th, the number one offensive tackle in the country. Texas is trending for him as well. So, we could see some immediate payoff in terms of momentum there. But I think it's also important to note, Texas has to finish. That we've seen Texas really build some early season momentum. Even last year, losing to Alabama, there was a lot of hype around Texas just for the fact that they took Bama down to the wire. Then we saw them have some disappointing losses following that. So, everything's out, in front of them for the taking. But, as far as recruiting, it could pay off immediately, but also they have to finish strong in this final season for the team in the Big 12 and really try to build that momentum towards early signing day. I love Quinn Ewers, what he said after the game. I know they're trying to bait him into saying something along the lines of, is Texas back? But he was great in standing strong and saying we haven't done anything yet. It sounds like similar on the recruiting trail, just kind of that patience. And this was a big win, but 2 weeks into the season. Hank, we got some viewer questions here for you I want to ask. HM33 wants to know, do you think Texas finishes with another top 5 class this cycle? I think it's well within reach. And we wrote in the Stampede this morning, this win's a big deal. It's certainly a big deal. It's kind of put Texas on the map. It's got kids talking about Texas. And I noted, kids don't remember Texas from the Rose Bowl in 2005. They know who Vince Young is. They don't remember really watching Vince Young play. They do know Alabama. They've seen Alabama win these titles year after year, all these first-round picks. And they just saw Texas beat Alabama, and not just beat them, kind of beat them up. And so, I think this is certainly something that could propel them. You add a guy like Ryan Wingo, you add a guy like Brandon Baker, maybe flip some guys throughout the next few months leading into the early signing period. This class could really finish, in that upper echelon, probably top 5, in my opinion.
Another question here from our viewers, Alvin F. He wants to know, Hank, do you think Saturday's win sent a message to the SEC that Texas has the roster to compete pretty quickly once they join next season?
Yeah, I absolutely think it does. We saw Texas compete with LSU in the Joe Burrow year. We saw them compete with Alabama last year. We saw them beat Georgia in the Sugar Bowl a few years ago. They have the guys, and I think it was almost kind of a poetic finish to the game. With Texas running out the clock. Alabama they were small little runs, but Texas was just kind of imposing their will on Alabama in the fourth quarter before, the final 2 minutes when they could take a knee. And I thought that was kind of a symbolic, pre-SEC little notion by the coaching staff. They were able to, Bama just couldn't get them off the field, and it was from their ability to run the ball. And obviously, they had big plays through the air as well. But in the end, it was kind of that bully ball, running out the clock. So I do think, this sent a message. They're ready, and I think it's going to be a really exciting time in Austin the next few years. I heard those SEC chants in the fourth quarter coming from Texas fans. You mentioned the 2005 and how, kids these days probably don't remember that. If they were born in 2005, they're 18 years old. So they have already recruited some of those kids just to make us all feel a little old there. But Hank, thank you so much for putting this big win into perspective for us. You can check out more of his work at Horns 24/7. As you can imagine, that site has all the great content happening around the Texas program right now. So check out horns247.com.